Hi, I'm Scott Jones, and this is the Attuned Parent Podcast. If parenting your teen feels heavier than you expected, you're not alone. On this podcast, we talk about what's really happening underneath anxiety, defiance, shutdown, and family conflict, using attachment science, nervous system awareness, and practical tools that actually work. Because behavior is protective before it's problematic, and regulated parents increase influence. Let's get started. I want to tell you about a dad I worked with. One day he was sitting in my office. His shoulders were slumped. He was exhausted, not in a way that has to do with sleep. And he looked at me and he said, "Scott, I don't even think my kid likes me anymore." And this wasn't some disengaged father. He showed up. He coached teams. He rearranged his work schedule to not miss important events or therapy appointments. He was trying. He just kept trying. But every time he reached towards his son seemed to move another step away. And finally, he asked me a question that I've heard hundreds of parents ask over the years. He just asked, "What am I doing wrong?" Maybe you've been wondering the same thing. Why does my teenager pull away when all I'm trying to do is love them? Why do they seem to get angry when things are actually seeming to be getting better? Why does every attempt at connection somehow turn into conflict? If that's your experience, if you have ever felt like your teenager is allergic to every connection attempt you're trying, today's episode is for you. I want you to think about your teenager in a different way. They're really not as confusing as they may seem. In fact, their behavior might make sense more than you realize. So today I want to give you a completely different lens to look through, because what's happening between you and your child has a name. It has a neurological explanation, and it has a pathway through. Welcome to the Attuned Parent Podcast. I'm glad you're here. So let's get started. Today we are talking about attachment. Now, most parents, when they hear the word attachment, think of babies. They think of those early months, skin-to-skin contact, eye contact, being held, the way an infant stops crying when you pick them up. They've maybe read something about secure attachment in early childhood, and they think, "Hey, we bonded, we did that part, we're good." And that's not wrong. What happens in those early years matters tremendously. But here's what the research tells us, and what most parenting resources don't quite get. Attachment is not a phase. It's a system. It's a biological relational system that activates across the entire lifespan, especially in moments of stress, fear, or genuine need. John Bowlby, who was a British psychiatrist whose work essentially founded modern attachment theory, described it this way. He said, "The attachment system is the brain's answer to one foundational question. When life gets hard, who shows up? Is there someone I can go to when things fall apart?" That's attachment. That's really all attachment is. It's the answer your nervous system has built over years of relationships. And as your child, at 2 months or 2 years or even 16 years, your child is always asking that question. So when children experience someone who is consistently showing up, their nervous system begins to make some pretty powerful assumptions. People can be trusted. I'm worth caring for. I don't have to face everything by myself. That becomes their normal, and they develop what we call secure attachment. They can go out into the world, take risks, make friends, try hard things, fail, come back, try again. Because underneath all of this is this belief that if something goes wrong, there's someone to go back to. Secure attachment is not about having perfect parents. It's about having consistent enough, responsive enough, reparative enough parents that the child internalizes this. I am worth showing up for, Relationships are generally safe, and I don't have to protect myself from the people I love. But sometimes life teaches something different. Maybe caregivers disappeared. Maybe they were unpredictable or had their own mental health issues. Maybe they loved deeply, but they struggled with addiction or their own trauma or circumstances that just made consistency impossible. Sometimes there might be abuse, sometimes neglect, sometimes multiple foster placements, sometimes just simply years of emotional disconnection. And when a child experiences these types of disruptions, their brain doesn't think, I must be broken. It thinks, I better protect myself. And that shapes the way your teenager moves through every relationship, even the one they have with you. Most people think attachment gets decided in those first few years of life. And that's not completely true. Those years are tremendously important, but adolescence opens up another window. Remember, the teenage brain is literally under construction. Connections are being strengthened, others are being pruned away. The brain is reorganizing itself, which means that relationships matter again in a really profound way. I tell parents all the time, you are not parenting a finished product. You are parenting a brain that's still wiring itself. And that means something really hopeful. It's not too late. So let me describe something that I see constantly in my work and that I want to give you a name for. Imagine a parent comes in and tells me this: I've been trying everything. More warmth, more patience. I've been showing up. I've been repairing. I've been doing everything this podcast talks about. And my teenager just keeps pushing harder. It's like the more I try, the worse it gets. Sometimes they might say, maybe I should just back off. Maybe I am smothering them. Maybe they just need space. But backing off usually is the wrong move. And here's why. What you're experiencing is what I call the attachment paradox. And it's one of the most disorienting things to understand about teenagers with disrupted attachment histories. When a child's early experiences teach them that closeness is dangerous, that the people they needed were also the people who hurt them or left them or were simply not available, the attachment system doesn't disappear. It just reorganizes around a specific protection strategy. And that strategy is essentially, don't let people get close enough to do it to me again. Keep them at arm's length. Be the one who leaves before you get left. Pick a fight before someone has the chance to disappoint you. Sabotage moments when things are getting good, because good things ending hurts more than things that were never good to begin with. So that's not manipulation, at least not consciously. It's a nervous system doing exactly what it learned how to do in a world that just wasn't unsafe or predictable. So the irony at the heart of the attachment paradox is the teen who pushes hardest is usually the one who needs connection the most and is the most terrified of what needing it might cost them. So when you pursue connection and they escalate, that escalation is not evidence that the connection is the wrong approach. It might be evidence that the nervous system is treating your approach as a threat. And it's a threat it learned to protect against. Imagine two people standing in front of a suspension bridge stretching across a big canyon. The first person has crossed bridges their whole life. They barely even think about it. They walk right across. They've never had a problem. The bridge is always held up. But the second person once fell through a bridge. They almost died. So now what happens? They don't sprint across the bridge. They test every board. They shake the ropes. They stop halfway. Maybe they even turn around. Not because the bridge isn't safe, but because another bridge earlier in their life wasn't safe. Your relationship is that bridge. Some teenagers simply walk across. Others are going to test every board. They're going to challenge you, question you, push you. Not because they don't want a relationship. They've been trying to find out if this bridge is safe. So what does that look like in real life? Let's imagine a scenario. A family has been doing work for 3 months, real work, therapy, regulation, coming back after ruptures, staying steady. And one Saturday, things just seem genuinely good. They make breakfast together. There's laughter. The teen makes a joke and the parents laugh. For a moment, it just feels like it's all starting to pay off. And then that afternoon, the teen picks a fight over something meaningless. The charger wasn't put in the right spot. The parent said something slightly wrong. Suddenly, it's full escalation. The door slammed. A warm morning out the window. The parents are devastated. They're wondering, what did they do wrong? They wonder if it's ever going to get better. But here's what actually happened. The warmth of that morning was real, and it was terrifying to that teen's nervous system because that nervous system learned to expect loss and disappointment and doesn't know what to do with sustained closeness. It reads it as a threat. And that does what it has always done to manage the threat. It creates distance. It breaks the connection before the connection can be broken. So that fight was not about the charger. The fight is simply a nervous system saying, things got too close and I need to create space before I get hurt. Understanding this as a parent does not make it less hard to live with, but it does change where you might put your energy. You stop asking what you did wrong. You start recognizing that the escalation after warmth is actually a sign that the warmth landed, that the nervous system felt it. It just doesn't know what to do with it yet. Your teen is not pushing you away. They are just testing whether or not you're going to leave. So I want to spend some intentional time talking about a specific type of parent, because if you are a parent who adopted your teenager, especially if that adoption came after early neglect or abuse or multiple placements or significant loss, what I've been describing is probably not abstract to you. It's just a normal Tuesday. Adoptive parents come into my office all the time, and they describe the same experience with striking consistency. And I want to say out loud exactly as they say it to me. They say, we've given this child everything. We've been patient. We show up. We've loved them completely and consistently. We go to therapy. We've been doing all the reading. We've listened to the podcast. And sometimes it feels like the harder we try, the more they push away. And I don't know how much more I can take. I want to say two things to that parent. First of all, what you're experiencing is real. This is genuinely hard and the effort is enormous. And the feedback you're getting is often, non-existent. The exhaustion is not weakness. It's not an accurate report of what that work costs. Second, what you're experiencing is also not evidence that it's not working. Here's what's happening underneath. A child who has experienced early loss, neglect, or disrupted attachment has a nervous system that has been calibrated to expect a specific outcome. Okay? Even when the environment changes completely, even when they are in a home with safe, loving, consistent people, the body does not immediately trust the new data. Your child is not rejecting your family. They are testing whether or not your family will prove that that relationship is going to be safe. And the test looks like defiance, because that's the language the nervous system has learned. Karen Purvis, whose trust relational intervention emerged from decades of work with children with really hard backgrounds, offered a number that I share with adoptive parents. She said, these children often need between 100 and 400 repetitions of a corrective experience to begin to rewire a belief that was formed in their first relationships. Think about that. 100 to 400 repetitions. Not one beautiful breakthrough, not one perfect repair, 100 to 400 interventions. Iterations of, I see you, I'm not leaving, You did not scare me away. I'm still here. I know that can sound daunting, but I wanted to sound more like permission. Permission to stop measuring success by whether or not your teenager is grateful or warm or visibly changed, and start measuring it by whether you showed up again today, whether you stayed regulated through the test, whether you repaired when you got it wrong. Because each one of those are repetition, and each one is a vote for a new neural pattern, and they add up, even when you can't see them adding up. I want to introduce a concept that I think every parent of a teenager with a disrupted attachment history needs to know. It's called earned security. Earned security is exactly what it sounds like. Attachment security that was not provided in early childhood, but was built slowly, incrementally through accumulated relational experiences. The research is clear. Adults who had difficult or insecure early attachments can and often do develop earned secure attachment. They carry the memory of what that early relationship was like. They haven't forgotten it, but they have also built new pathways through new relational experiences. And those new pathways change everything about how they regulate, how they trust, how they show up in relationships, and how they parent their own children. The research also shows that adults with earned secure attachment parent their own children as well as, or sometimes better, than adults who were securely attached from birth, because they understand it from the inside, what it costs to build safety when it wasn't given. So this is also available for your teenager. It is built through consistency over time. And the way we do that is we have to follow these steps. So specifically, number one, stay regulated when your teenager is trying to find out if you'll blow up. Number two, repair when you get it wrong. Not perfectly, but consistently. And number three, show up. Show up after a rupture and after the test and after the fight without punishment or withdrawal. And number four, communicating through your behavior rather than your words that you are safe, that you're not going anywhere. What earns security is not perfection. It is what happens after the imperfection, the repair, the return, the proof that a relationship can survive a hard moment and that you will come back. And here's the thing that I think parents most need to hear. You do not have to have been there in the beginning to be the person who builds earned security later on with your teenager. All right. So what exactly does this all look like on a Tuesday afternoon when your teenager is escalating and you are exhausted and nothing seems to be working? We've talked throughout this series about the attuned framework: attentive presence, track emotions, take responsibility, understand the need, name the feeling, and encourage connection. If you have been listening for a while, you know these steps. But I want to walk you through what attune looks like specifically when you apply it through an attachment lens, because there's a layer of intention that gets added when you understand what's actually driving your teenager's behavior. So let's say your teenager comes home and something feels immediately off. They're not loud, they're quiet in that way that it's not quite peace, but it feels like pressure, and you know something's wrong. They go to their room, you give them a few minutes, and then you knock. What? That's not a question from your teenager, right? That's a defense. That's a wall. Well, attentive presence here doesn't look like pushing through the door. It means physically slowing down, softening your voice before you speak, letting your nervous system settle. Before any words leave your mouth, their attachment system is reading your body. Are you safe? Are you coming in regulated, or are you adding to the threat level? Track emotions internally before you say anything. What are you noticing in them? Tension, withdrawal, the kind of quiet that has a weight to it. What are you noticing in yourself? Do you have a pull to fix it? Is there frustration at that defense from your kid? Is there worry? You track it all before you respond to any of it. You say something like, we don't have to talk. I'm just checking in. I'm here if you need me. And you mean it. You stay for a moment without needing anything back. Understand the need. This is where the attachment lens really changes things. The question isn't just what does my teen need right now? It's what does this nervous system need right now, given everything that it has already learned about whether people are safe? And the answer is almost always it needs proof, not words, proof. The proof that your presence, your regulation, your willingness to stay and be there, that it's a safe place without making it a conditional response. Name the feeling. If there's any opening, it's not an interrogation. It's not about, hey, what's wrong? Talk to me. We have to communicate. It's just an observation. Something like, seems like today was a lot. And then you leave it. You wait. Sometimes nothing happens. That's okay. Encourage connection. This is the piece that matters most through an attachment lens. You don't end the interaction with frustration or withdrawal, even when you get nothing back. You just say something like, well, I'm going to go make dinner. I'd love it if you came and sat with me. Hope you're okay. And then you go. Maybe they come, maybe they don't, but the door stays open. And the offer was made without conditions. And that specific pattern repeated over time is a repetition that builds trust. It is one more count towards the 100 to 400 from 100 to 400 that we need to get to. It's one more data point the nervous system has to consider when it asks, am I safe? Who do I go to when things fall apart? So you're not going to see that question answered in a single conversation. You are answering it across dozens, hundreds of conversations. And it's the accumulation that is the intervention. I want to leave you with one final question as we wrap up. The behavior is the question. You staying is the answer. Every argument, every slam door, every eye roll, every withdrawal is just asking the same question. Will you still love me? Are you going to leave too? Am I too much? Your teenager may never ask those questions with words, but they ask them with their behavior every day. And every time you come back, every time you repair, every time you stay regulated, you are answering them with, I am here and I am safe. And that is attachment work. It's slow, it's often invisible. It will ask more of you than almost any other thing you do as a parent. But that is the work, and that is what will make a difference. Next episode, we are going to make this attachment lens practical. We're going to walk through the 4 attachment styles as they actually present in teenagers, not toddlers, and what each one looks like, what triggers it, what's underneath it, and what the specific response needs to be as a parent. I'm calling it the attachment playbook, and you're going to want to take notes. I'll see you there.